everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jackson Interaction Podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson. And as always, we have guests each week where we either talk about stand-up comedy or we talk about professional wrestling. And sometimes, much like today, we get a chance to talk about both. So right now, I want to welcome my guest today, the one and only Big Shane Batchelor. Big Shane, how you doing, buddy?
All right, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Had fun last night. I don't know exactly when this is coming out, so it'll probably be last night. But as we speak right now, on Sunday morning, last night, we had another main event comedy show at Happy Hour Comedy Club in Anniston, and you was able to join us and put on a hell of a performance, man. Good stuff.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I try to do my best. Even sometimes, I just do my thing, man. I just go up and spit out my rhetoric for a little bit and then get done.
Well, everybody was talking about what a great job you did and how comfortable it was that you seemed, and it didn't seem forced. It didn't seem, like you were spouting off stuff that you had memorized. That maybe that it was just it was real laid back and just you're a naturally funny guy. So tell us a little bit about that, man. Like where do you pinpoint your love of comedy starting that you can best?
Well, my parents were bad parents, so they let me watch Eddie Murphy Raw when it first come out.
There you go.
And that kind of a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah,
you might hear a dog whining in the background. I'm sorry if you do.
that's fine.
Can't shoot them live. They get mad about that.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't want to get canceled.
No, we don't need PETA on us.
Oh, canceled. No, but I watched, and then I watched live on the Sunset Strip with Richard Pryor. And I don't know. I've just always enjoyed being funny. It's always been, when things would go bad, that's what I would automatically go back to. And I've just learned how to hone it in my favor. Instead, I actually have a really good time doing stand up. It's my second
I don't.
favorite thing to do.
I don't know that I've ever even talked about this on here. I've talked about multiple places, podcasts, different things. That the first comedy special I remember ever seeing repeatedly was Bill Cosby himself on Cinemax. Which, speaking of getting canceled, that's not a popular thing to say anymore. But um, I recently remembered that when it occurred to me that, hey, this is something I want to do. I remember being on the school bus and I was about to tell a story about something that had happened in class that day. And this girl that I liked um, goes, "Oh, wait a minute! I want to go listen to this. I love listening to Gene tell stories. He's hilarious." And that clicked in my head, like, "Whoa, she thinks I'm hilarious. Like she likes hearing me tell stories." It didn't even occur to me that I was good at telling stories, or there was, you know what I mean? Like I just tell stories. But that day, from that point on, and that was probably fifth grade, maybe. It just kind of stuck in the back of my head, like, oh, there's people who like hearing me tell stories. There's people who think I'm funny, especially this one particular cute girl that I really like. So I don't know, and that kind of where it stuck in the back of my head, that it kind of became a thing. And then I had no idea as I got older. I eventually got involved in the wrestling business and did that, but I had no idea how you would go about. Like, I knew there were people who got on a stage and did stand-up comedy, and they even got paid for it, some of them, and made a living at it. And two
Every
of
now
them,
and then.
I had no idea how you would go. So, at what point did you decide, hey, this is something I want to do, and how did you go about making it happen?
Well, I drove a truck for like 9 years, and I got really sick, and I had kidney problems, and found out I was diabetic, so I had to quit truck driving. And then I went into this weird depression for a little while, and then my mom asked me. She said, "What's something you really enjoy doing?" I said, "I like being funny." So can you go out there and tell them I'm doing that in here so they don't come in acting all nutty? Oh, so what I did is she said, "You want to do stand up?" So that's what started it 10 years ago. And a few months later, here I am. So I'm on the thing, honey. Sorry.
That's fine. That's no big deal. So, do you remember your first performance? Where it was at?
Yeah,
How it
fully.
came about?
Yeah, yeah. It was the Laughing Skull Lounge in downtown Atlanta. It was.
Nice.
Yeah, I went all for it. I didn't come to some bar or something like it right off the bat. I went straight to it, and yeah, it was pretty fun. I first time I ever done it, I was addicted from then on out. I tell you, the stage is worse than crack ever thought about being.
So, what kind of preparation went into? So, I've talked to quite a few people, both on here and just in conversations in general. What kind of preparation went into that first time that you went on stage?
I maybe I'll be honest with you. I don't ever, I don't ever prepare like I should. I never do. I never do. And the first time I wrote down some ideas, but they only give you like 5 minutes to begin with, that kind of
Yeah.
deal. So I just told a few stories and, hit a little. I watched enough stand up comedy to kind of realize, the hit points and applause breaks a little bit to begin with. Not like I do now, but yeah, that's, yeah, yeah, that was it. I just, it went really good. The first time went really good. And then I bombed at the improv in Atlanta completely back when it was around. I took the major shit. So, but I kept going. So,
So, yeah, we've all anybody who's done this any length of time, we've all been there, and a lot of times, like you get lucky. It was like first night that I went on stage, I went and did open mic at the Star Dome in Birmingham, and I had a few friends there, and it went really well. And everybody's like, "Oh man, that was great," and you like say you feel like you're on top of the world. Like, man, all right, I just did I did 5 minutes in open mic at the Star Dome. Let's start touring next week. I got this shit. Let's when we're gonna tape this special. But then
then
you bomb, and
you take me into the nuts.
yes, and your confidence is completely shattered. Everything you thought you knew is out the window. So, what was that like for you? I mean, I know you. I mean, obviously you bounced back from it.
It
You're still doing
actually,
it, but
in all seriousness, it took me years to realize that the good nights and the bad nights are the same. You learn from both and you move to the next one. It took me a long time to realize that, because I would have a great set and I'd be flying high on the mountain. You know what I'm saying? Woo, and then have a shit set and be crying out behind a dumpster at Denny's, So it was just you got to kind of figure out what's, there's a center point that you need to stay at all times. You can't ride too high and you can't go too low. So once I figured that out, it's been gravy. Once I figured that out, I put in my mind that I'm never going to have a bad set again, and I really haven't.
I mean, it's when you realize that okay, there's different crowds, there's different people find different things funny. Because I mean, I've done the same material in the same venue in front of a crowd and it kill, and then 2 months later do a lot of the same material in front of a different crowd at the same venue and eat a dick. And it's like you know. And the first couple times that happens, now I mean I'm in panic mode. Like, okay, I've got to completely redo everything I thought I knew about, and then you realize it's just that's the way it goes sometimes. They just weren't feeling it that night. You can't go and reinvent yourself every time you
No,
have a
no,
bad night or something doesn't hit.
but I've come to realize something. Funny is funny. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not, but the only bright bad part is about being a comedian. There's a little bit of something there that you want to make people laugh at you. So there's something, like kind of there'll be 100 people in that room, right? 99 will be laughing their ass off, and you'll be staring at the one it ain't.
Yes.
And yeah, that's the one. That's what you have to move past.
Yeah.
And it takes. I'm telling you, it will take you years, and a lot of people don't make it past it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it kills it for a lot of people. They can't move past it. They can't wrap their head around it, and because I mean, dude, I mean, you've been doing this long enough. I've been doing it. You think of all the people you've seen come and go that came in with so much enthusiasm. They were going to take the bull by the horns. They were going to rule this shit, and next thing you know, they're out of it. They have a couple of bad sets, and they just walk away. And It's crazy how many people you see that are all in it. We're here, we're doing this, and then they have a bad night or two, and you never see them again. They just
There's a, it's going to sound crazy, but there's an ebb and flow to it, to doing stand up comedy. You have to realize that some rooms you go to, you're going to be telling these same jokes to 200 people, right? And in the next room you go to, you're going to be telling them same jokes to 3 people
yeah.
or 9 people. You just kind of you have to put it in perspective that they're both the same thing. They really are. It's just the energy difference. But once you get it figured out, you can do it you can make your grandma laugh if you know how to do it.
It's all. I mean, a lot of it's just delivery. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like I have watched people go on stage and absolutely kill. And if you transcribed what their jokes were and read what the material was to somebody out of context without their delivery, they'd be like, that shit ain't funny.
Well, a
And
lot of
I've seen people go up who had great, strong material that got no response because their lack of delivery, their lack of personality, their lack of just connecting with the audience. That's the huge element that people can't necessarily. I mean, you can learn it, but you kind of got to have it or you don't, as far as
well,
like,
you have to kind of have that charisma on the mic. You kind of got to have that uh, energy. I get you've seen wrestlers that were ring technicians and absolutely horrible on the mic,
yeah,
right? And the
yeah,
people that are good on the mic but their wrestling's kind of sketchy have way more fans.
oh yeah,
I've never figured that out, but well, I see it a little bit more now that I'm saying, but it really is. It's a charisma thing. You don't have to be the funniest person in the room. You just have to be the most likable.
yep.
You can
Most
make,
likable, most interesting.
yep. You can, like, you can tell your funny only has to be about a 6 out of 10. If you can figure out how to get your charisma, your delivery, your applause breaks, and the timing down, that's where the funny's at. A lot of times it ain't material; it's everything else.
Well, there's so many of the like new people starting out that treat it like it's a math problem. Like, all right, I've got to write this much material and I go up there and I deliver it and you see it. I mean, I've been that guy in the past, like where they're so focused on delivering the material and spouting it back off the way they wrote it down on paper and delivering a certain way. They're not even really acknowledging there's people in the room. Like, I mean, there's no applause break. They don't wait for the laugh because they're just plowing through this
They just
material.
hammer. They got that piece of paper in front of them, and they hammer that sumbitch straight through to the end. And that don't make you likable. That just says that you did something on stage. That don't mean you're a comedian. That means you. It. I've seen that so much. You know, I actually think that crowd work is a good bit of comedy. Like if you can go in there and work a crowd, that's where they're messing up. They think they're telling jokes that they think somebody else will find funny. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
if you're not comfortable inside your own world of your own jokes of what you're saying, it will never translate to the crowd. It just won't. You'll just be a dude up there spouting words. That's it. It's
Well,
just some
it's a
guy up there talking.
it's a recital at that point. You're just up
Yeah,
there
you're just up
reciting
there.
words
Yeah,
that you wrote.
you're just up there playing your piano song. You know what I mean? And as soon as it's done, you walk off stage, and there's no interactions, no anything. It's just I don't know. I don't like. I like being. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. Some of the best comedians in the world are very prepared.
Yeah.
But I can't. That dead, no energy, just kind of getting up there and pushing through it. I've never enjoyed that, and you see it all the time.
I'll tell you something else you see a lot. People who you sit with them in the green room and they're funny, they're likable, they have a great personality, and they're cool to talk to. and they go on stage and turn into somebody else, and they're delivering this material they've written, and they 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 don't connect with the audience, they don't get laughs. It's terrible, and you're back there thinking like, where's the guy I was just talking to? That guy would have been funny. That guy would have got laughs. This is a nightmare, and like you see that a lot where they can't. I mean, and
People,
I'm not criticizing people for being trying to be something else on stage. I mean, I've been toying with that. I mean, I've done this off and on since 2006, and I've played around with characters and different bullshit for the last couple of years, and I'm still figuring out. Like last night was the first time I had went on stage as Gene Jackson in quite some time because I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with this shit exactly. But um, you're like, if you would just be yourself and have the same personality back here with those people out there, it would work. But like, I don't know if they're just so nervous or if they psych themselves up into thinking, okay, this is how I have to present myself on stage. But man, you see that a lot.
well,
And
what it is there's a difference between being funny and being a comedian. There just is.
yeah,
Not everybody can do it, because if everybody could do it, they would. So there's just some people are just they don't. I don't get it. Like I said, it's this jokes that they think that somebody else would find funny.
yeah, well, that's what they
It's
do. They
not
sit down
you.
with a notebook and go, all right, what are people going to laugh at? And and I've done that in the past.
Oh, I have too. Every comedian that ever was has done that. It's almost
And I don't always buy into. I mean, I was talking with a guy last night at our show, and I was hearing him give advice to another guy who's really really new, and he was saying like, we got to be yourself, and you can't be a character and all that. And I was like, dude, okay, I get that be yourself stuff, and I agree with that to a point. But then again, there's people who are very successful as characters. I mean,
do you
there's
know
some of
how
the
much
richest people in the world who play characters.
money Larry the Cable Guy made? Way
Hell
more than
yeah,
Dan Whitney made. I can tell you that.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been toying with because and I've talked about this on this show before and um you know, I'm not going to tell the whole big long convoluted story of how like Whitey and Buck Jenkins came to be, but my theory on that was right now I'm doing shows where I get anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes on stage. People don't know who Gene Jackson is. I don't have enough time necessarily to convey who he is or why he thinks what he thinks or any of this kind of shit. But like, if a guy named Whitey Jenkins comes out on stage, dressed
With
the
a
way he
with a
dressed,
mullet.
yeah, with a mullet and these sunglasses and Jack Daniels hat on and this accent, everybody knows that guy. They know a version of that guy. They know what he thinks. They know his perspective. They know the angle he's coming in at. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, that gives me a leg up. Like they already understand my jokes because everything I say, they already know who this guy is and what
Do you know
point
what?
of view he has.
Do you know what's cool about that you do with the Whitey Jenkins thing?
What's that?
Is he's got his own personality. Like there's none of Gene Jackson that follows that in.
Yeah,
To the point that when I first saw it, I thought it was two different people.
and I love that.
I
And
may
there's
have
a
been
lot of
slightly
people.
inebriated at that time, but I,
Yeah,
I really thought it was two people.
dude, at happy hour, I have opened the show as Gene Jackson, went and completely changed clothes, and come back out later in the show as Whitey Jenkins, and there was 95% of the crowd did not know it was the same person, which blows my freaking mind to no end.
I could not get
But
away with that.
I'm also proud. I'm also proud of it too. And so there's nights where I have fun being Whitey Jenkins. There's nights where I'd rather just be Gene Jackson and go out and be myself. I do like, I noticed last night, I like not having the sunglasses on because I can see people's faces and gauge their reactions better than when I got the freaking sunglasses on and I just kind of see nothing but bright lights up in my face. So I think I'm going to, maybe do a weird mixture of both. Like I'll do Gene Jackson sometimes, and sometimes and I'm especially going to use Whitey for these dumb clips we do on main event comedy and all these wrestling bits and all that kind of stuff. But I'm still figuring. I'm still trying to figure it all out. But um, I respect the fact that you have you're not a character. From best I can tell, Shane Batchelor is who you are,
Yeah, that's me,
but
dude.
you are able to, as soon as you go on stage, like I was trying to capture with Whitey Jenkins, I feel like as soon as you go out on stage and you start talking, people get you. They're like, oh, okay. I know who this guy is. I understand him. And that's why they connect with you immediately. And then that's why what you do works, because they're not like, all right, so what's this guy about? That's a talent in my mind, and that's something I've been struggling to try to figure out for a long time now. And you've got that down, like, um, and that's cool. And again, I told you this before we started recording, but or maybe I've said it since we started. I don't know. I've done a bunch of podcasts today. Shit all runs together,
It's all one up now.
but you know, that's what stood out to me was this isn't a guy up here reciting anything. This isn't a guy performing. This is just a dude on stage being funny, and you could tell by the crowd reaction to it. There's a difference between from one comic to the next. So kudos to that. And I want to just mention right here while we're talking, we've got the main event comedy. Bless you,
Oh,
twice.
yeah.
Um, we got the main event comedy championships coming up, and you are going to be competing in the competition on August 19th.
Yes, I
And I
am.
got to say, after seeing you perform a couple of times now, you're going to be tough to beat. I told you this last night after you came on stage. Like, man, you're going to be hell in this competition. You're going to be tough to beat. So tell folks, tell your fellow competitors what they got to look forward to when you hit that stage August 19th.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I have an ego to me. When it comes to doing stand up, I do. I really do. I want to make it as hard as possible for the person behind me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be the Macho Man and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to the Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's what I want. I want it to be hard to follow. And I go ahead and warn everybody there that's my competition. I'm going to kick your ass.
There you go, man. Well, all you got to do
That's
is
just all there is to it. You know what I mean? I'm a humble guy, most of the time, but when it comes to my stand up, I enjoy doing it, and I know I'm pretty good at it. The only reason why I'm not known more. Can y'all please stop? Sorry about that. I
you're
don't
good.
like humans.
I'm with you.
I'm just picking. But really, you know what I mean? My health has kind of got in the way. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying in a lot of ways. But I really enjoy doing stand up. I really enjoy making people laugh. And even begin with the reason why I started doing stand up was because I grew up extremely poor and I wanted to make a lot of money for my family and and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then they all got gone. They all passed away, blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah.
totally different reason I do stand up now. I do stand up now for that one person that had the worst day of their life that day. I want them to forget about everything that they had going on for that 10, 15 minutes I'm on stage. You know what I mean? And that's what pushes me. And that's the reason why I'll come back to saying about the competition. That's the reason why it's that person having a bad day is the reason why I'm going to make all them other comedians have a bad day.
There you go, man. And that's noble, I mean, that's people can go like, oh yeah, man, I want to do stand ups, I want to get rich, I want to be the next insert comedian's name here that's making a fortune right now. The Burt Kreischers and Seguras and
Do you know how
Matt,
many
Matt
times in
Pipes
do
and all these people.
you know how many times them people got kicked in the nuts on the way up?
That's what people don't forget is like those guys. They're not. Most of them. I don't
It's
know
not
about Matt
overnight.
Rife,
I
but
only know of one
Kreischer and
person.
Segura and those guys. They've had a long road, man. Nate Bargatze, like those guys have been around the block. Like this shit didn't happen overnight. They've paid their dues. They've earned it.
I
And
only really know of one comedian that rose up really fast. You know what I mean? He's actually from our area, Darren Knight, Southern Mama, whatever his name is. I
yeah,
worked with him to begin with. He's the only person I know that proclaims to be a comedian that went up that fast. Everybody else
yeah.
I know that have become decent name comedians that I've worked with have put in lots. They have donated a lot of their life to try to get there.
And you have to get good because, like you say, there's a lot of this stuff. No matter what you think you know in the beginning, there's a lot of this stuff that time and experience is the only way to get it.
Oh, that's
It's
it.
just, I mean, even when you think you've got it, it turns out you don't. And then 5 years later, you're like, oh, I didn't know shit then. I thought I did. I didn't know what I was doing. But now
Well,
I've got it. I've got it
it's that
figured out.
way in everything.
Yeah.
It's that way in wrestling. Yeah, you know how to throw somebody, but do you know how to land? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's just levels to it. Like, okay, like a doctor. A doctor works for free, and it's a practice for quite some time before they become a real doctor. So, because everybody's like, "Oh, you were doing this for free?" Yeah, I'm doing this for free. For those times when I don't.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. I mean,
Yeah, you have to.
you have to get the reps in, and but I mean, I think that's cool. Like, I've done wrestling since like 1997. Like I say, I've done comedy off and on since 2006. I've never made a significant amount of money at either one, and there's people that are like, well, I mean, you feel like that's time wasted, and like in some people's eyes, maybe. But for me, like you said a minute ago, it, how many people in their lives with what they do, whatever it is they do for a living, get a chance to, like you say, remove somebody from their bad day or their bad life, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes, and provide them with enjoyment, entertainment, with joy, with being happy and forgetting, for 10 minutes that, oh shit, the mortgage is due and we can't pay it, or mom's sick, or whatever it is that's
Anything, yeah.
plaguing
That
them.
to me, that's all. That's what it's about. It's no longer a me. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, I enjoy doing it. If I didn't, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
But it's 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 weird, man. Once you get that feeling of, hey, I'm doing this for the world, not just doing this for me. I'm not doing this to feed my ego. I'm not doing this, blah 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 blah. The whole aspect of it changes. You become happy at it. It's kind of like I know it's going to sound crazy, but it's kind of like serving soup at the soup kitchen.
yeah.
You're
Way
giving
more fun.
somebody something that they did not have when they walked in the door.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analogy. So shifting gears for just a minute, because if you look around behind me,
Yeah,
I've
I
got
can I can
I've
see
got
you have a nerd level.
I've got two whole rooms in my house that is just absolutely full of wrestling stuff, and there's still more in a closet that I don't have room for. But
I got something to tell you on that. Did you know I got the last Blue Blazer doll that was in the Southeast because they pulled them all from everywhere? Right?
really,
Yeah, and I gave it to my buddy to look after because I had a stepbrother and sister that were all from humans. I said, whatever you do, man, just hold on to it. He traded it for an NWO title.
oh gosh, oh
You know
my
how much that's worth now?
god, more than that NWO title, I guarantee you that.
Hey, for my truck, I can tell you that.
Oh damn. Yeah, my wife was saying the other day, like, there's a lot of money in those two rooms right now. I'm like, yeah, I'm aware.
There's nothing like having $50,000 worth of stuff hanging on your walls and eating ramen noodles.
Exactly, because God knows that's the story of our lives. My father-in-law brought a friend of his over to the house the other day just to walk him through here and show him all this stuff. They're like, look at all this cool wrestling stuff Gene's got. Um, but like I say, I'll kind of flip flop between having people on to talk about comedy. Sometimes I have people on to talk about wrestling, but sometimes I have people on, such as yourself, who are a fan of both or active participant in one or the other. So tell me a little bit about your wrestling fandom. Like, what's your earliest memories of
Oh,
wrestling?
in this very house I'm sitting in right now, this is my grandfather and grandmother's house, right? The guy gave to me. I used to sit in there with my granddaddy on Saturday nights, and watch NWA, the original, before
Yeah.
WCW come on. And he'd be jumping up and down and screaming and throwing shit at the TV, and everything else. And it just kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoyed the old gimmicks, man. The kayfabe and all that shit that ain't around no more. I like.
And there's something that's amazed me, like since I've kind of moved out of wrestling into comedy, is how much the two are alike. Especially like breaking into comedy is much like breaking into pro wrestling.
It's entertainment.
You're doing it for free just to get the experience, and the
You and
interactions are
four
all
other
the
dudes
same.
are riding across the state to do 10 minutes for $20. Yeah.
Exactly. So many parallels between the two. It's unreal. But to me, I enjoy watching the old stuff. I got all these videos over here, and I've got a huge DVD collection, and then of course, like the Peacock and all this other shit that's got it on there. But I love watching the old stuff because, like you say, the stories, the angles. It wasn't about when you watch the new stuff. I mean, there are some good stories, the bloodline things, and that sort of thing, but it's more perform like you're watching a performance, an exhibition of moves, and it's
Yeah.
just like ooh
That's
and
exactly
ah,
what
and
it is.
oh wow, I can't believe that guy flipped twice before he landed on him and stuff. But the story, like you're not invested in it like you were back, when I was a kid. I wanted to see that pay per view because I want to see if Dusty Rhodes gets his revenge on Ric Flair. I
Oh,
need
yeah.
to see, if Flair's going to get his revenge on Terry Funk because he pile drove him through a table 6 months ago. I'm not watching this because I want to see how many flips will they hit this time. Who cares?
Well,
After a while, how many more flips can they do? You can't top. You reach a point where you can't top yourself anymore. And the only thing that's going to keep you coming back is the story, is to see what happens. And I never thought, even when I was a small child, I didn't think that shit was real. I mean, I
there's
grabbed
a
my
lot
buddy
of.
by the arm and I threw him towards the fence in our backyard. Guess what? He didn't bounce off of it and run back to me because that's not how that's not how shit works.
Right. You can't punch somebody in the face 93 times and nothing swell up or bleed.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
But I knew they were going to have a match, and I didn't know who was going to win, and I wanted to see who was going to win, and that was good enough for me.
There's been a lot of really tough some bitches in wrestling though. They really have.
Oh yeah, oh
You know,
yeah.
you people talk, oh, it's fake. No, you still take an ass whooping. It's just a little more of a choreographed ass whooping.
I mean, you take a look at the bumps they take. I mean, you meet people who fall down one time in their life, and they're in a wheelchair. They're on disability for the rest of their life because they took a bad fall. And these guys take
Thousands
several
of falls a
bumps.
year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Hell in the Cell with Mick Foley.
Oh,
I
he
mean,
thought
you
he
look at
killed him
what
when he
that
went
man
through the
put his
ring.
body through in one night, in one match. And there's no, I'm sorry, there's no faking him getting thrown off of that cell through the announce table. But for anybody that's bumped in a hard wrestling ring, the announce table bump was crazy because it took so much luck almost of, okay, if you pitch him off the
Oh, it
top of
had to be perfect. It had to
is he
be
going to
perfect.
land? Is he going to land where he needs to land? But that bump through the top, straight down into the ring with
Taker
the
thought
chair
he
coming down
killed
his
him.
face, that was the brutal
He
one.
really
That was
did.
the one that was
Taker,
like, oh my god.
when he was standing on top of the ring looking down, he was waiting on him to move. He flat out said that. He said he thought he killed him.
Yeah. Yeah, I seen a thing on YouTube recently where him and Foley sat down together and watched that match and discussed it. And just what you said, like he said, I was looking down there waiting to see if you were going to move.
Because
He
that
said,
wasn't planned. Off to the side, down through the announce table, that was kind of planned. But it breaking on top up there, no, that weren't planned.
and you didn't expect him to come back from the first one, and then you certainly didn't expect him to come back from the second one, and then go into thumbtacks and all the stuff that he went on to do, and then run in later in the in the main event in another match. And what's sad is like now they've found ways to recreate that. You got Chris Jericho getting thrown off a cage, but it's clearly there's a stunt pad underneath, and there's foam pieces that go flying, and it's nothing even resembling to what Foley did.
If you wanna watch something a little more real, to where the bumps are actually really hurting, watch some of that hardcore backyard wrestling.
Oh my lord! You remember when that was a thing, like in the 2000s,
Ooh,
like early 2000s, they put out all those VHS, the best of backyard wrestling, and these guys who didn't understand wrestling were back there just killing each other because they were throwing each other off the
each other
house and
overhead with
stupid
light bulbs and
shit. Yeah, because they just didn't know any better, you know.
all kind of goofy shit. They still do that. You can find it
And
on
some of them ended
YouTube.
up getting in the business. Actually
Yeah,
became
like
wrestlers after that Josh Prohibition and
what's his damn name? He used to be a member of the Shield. He's in AEW now. What's his damn name?
oh, Moxley.
John Moxley. Yeah, he was
Yeah, he was
one.
a backyard
He
guy.
was a backyard guy. Yeah.
And still wrestles like it to this day if you if you ask Jim Cornette. Uh,
Do you ever watch Jim Cornette?
yeah.
I watch his podcast all the damn time.
I,
He is man, he played the heel. He played the heel down, boy. He knew what was up.
yeah, he was hilarious in promos, but I mean, I love listening to the old ones. Like it's fun to listen to him rip AEW and shit on all the stuff they do now. But I really love listening to the old ones where he talks about the Jim Crockett days, like you were talking about, the old NWA and the touring schedule, and giving out, talking about how much money they made in each town and all this different stuff. That kind of insight is really interesting to me to kind of find out because now there's the internet and all that, and the behind the scenes of stuff before it happens a lot of times, but usually immediately after it happens. But that wasn't around back then. So to hear
There's no
the
social
behind the
media.
scenes stories of stuff that happened and people who really didn't get along and things that
Like
weren't supposed
the
to happen.
airplane ride from hell. did
Yeah,
you watch that?
yeah, the Dark Side
Oh,
of the Ring.
God.
That's an interesting series as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And I like,
Well, they caught a lot of heat for doing some of them.
I didn't think they were coming back. Like I thought that pretty much ended them. But then they got this new season, and I watched the Adrian Adonis episode the other day, and it was
I hadn't watched
pretty
it
good.
yet. I hadn't watched it
Check
yet.
it out. It's Adrian Adonis is an interesting story, and the way just watch it. Is all. I won't spoil it here, but man,
I'll check it out.
Something else.
Yeah, I like the old school wrestling a good bit more than I do the new.
It is, and I understand like young people who came up in the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, and all that sort of thing. That from day one they were watching the cruiserweight matches and Rey Mysterio's and all these different guys. That to go back and watch '80s wrestling with no context, they're like, man, that's boring. They don't really do anything. And I get if this is what you came in on, and then you go back to that, you're like, well, they're not really doing anything exciting. But to have grew up in it and lived it then, because I mean, I remember when they had Super Brawl 2 in 1992, they had Jushin Thunder Liger against Flying Brian Pillman. And there was a few high spots where, like Liger did a frontward flip out to the floor and Pillman did a dive over the rope to the floor. And that was innovative stuff. Like me and my friends are watching that on pay-per-view like, oh my God, that's crazy.
How in the world did the shit they do now? Like,
that's the wildest shit we've ever seen. And then, fast forward to 5 years later to the Nitro days, it's like, the opening match of every show. You know, like you don't even bat an eye anymore. And when you think back to like, oh man, there's a time when Bobby Eaton coming off the top rope with the Alabama Jam leg drop was the biggest high spot you were going to see, and now somebody can do a double flip off the top of a cage, and you're just indifferent because it's just you see so much of it. It doesn't mean anything. And I know there's people who are like, oh, you old farts, shitting on our wrestling, but it's just like,
how dare you shit on our wrestling?
back in my day, we liked a 30-minute headlock because that was wrestling. I'm not saying that. He knew how to work it. But I'm just saying, I mean, when AEW started, I was really excited about it.
I was too.
Went
I
to
was too.
Chicago to All In and saw how all that came to be. But my thing was like the Young Bucks, for example. At the time, the only way you watched the Young Bucks is they were on Ring of Honor and they would show up once a month. Once every 6 weeks, you'd see a Young Bucks match. Or you watched PWG from California, and you had to get that on DVD, and they did like one show every 3 or 4 months. So when you'd see their moves once or twice, 3 times a year, you're like, ooh. But when you start seeing it on TV every couple of weeks, and they're doing
the wow factor out of it.
They're getting all those moves in almost every match they do. It's like, yeah, there's that again.
Well, that's what the new wrestling's about. That's what it's all about. I just can't. I try to watch it, you know what I mean, and just like,
I mean, it's more just because I'm 46 years old and I've always watched wrestling, and that's just what I do. So I watch some of it out of habit. But like, I don't think if I had grown up a wrestling fan, if I had started watching wrestling in the 2000s, I don't think I would still watch it. I think I would have just moved away from it. And I don't watch it on a week to week basis. I'll go on YouTube and watch clips of the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn and some of that stuff. But I don't watch.
I do enjoy watching Cody Rhodes wrestle.
Yeah, he's so good, and promos like. That promo with him and Paul Heyman back before WrestleMania, where they brought up Dusty and, Paul helping out Dusty, hired him for ECW, and Heyman's crying, and Cody's almost crying. But then at the end, Heyman delivers that line, how, you're Dusty Rhodes' son, but Roman Reigns is the son Dusty always wanted. And drop the mic. Dude, I don't care who you are. You had to see WrestleMania after that. You had to. No question.
Wrestling wouldn't be the same without Paul Heyman. That's just all it is. I go back and watch some of the old shit that he was in when he had hair.
and his cordless telephone. Not even a cell phone. It was a cordless telephone.
I'll never know who he was talking to. He'd always have it up to his ear when they'd go when they cut to him. He'd always be talking. Like, who are you talking to, guy?
You're like, dude, we know how cordless phones work. Like, you're nowhere close enough to a base to be talking to somebody. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, he. Oh, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
But no, I was just gonna say that I wish they had him teaching people. Like, I know like Dusty Rhodes was down at that performance center and he was, teaching guys to do promos, and a lot of the people that, that he taught, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins, some of those guys, you can tell, they learned something from him, and he may just not be willing to do it or have the time. But man, I wish, Paul Heyman was able to spend time with these young guys and teach them how to do promos and how to, add enough real stuff in there that because that was the thing with Heyman. He would always sprinkle in enough things that if you know anything about wrestling, if you have any insight, where you're like, oh, just like the thing with him and Cody. When he talked about, him hiring Dusty for ECW when Dusty was broke and, the family was, destitute. You're like, oh, that's some real stuff. They're talking about some real stuff right now. Like, he was always the master at sprinkling in just enough reality to where you're like, oh, there's something, this ain't just fake bullshit storyline. Like, there's something real here, and it kind of gets you invested in it, but without it being, the Vince Russo of everything's it's a shoot. This ain't supposed to happen. Oh, that
That,
type of thing.
that
There's a
dude is the most thumbs
he's the
down son bitch I've ever seen in wrestling. I'm sorry. He
worst.
ruined WCW. You know what? I actually, this is kind of a offbeat, off thing, whatever. I almost think Vince McMahon sent him to WCW because
I don't think it's out of the question, honestly.
that was the biggest belly flop as soon as it's.
You would almost have to be trying to ruin something, to ruin it to the point that he did. I mean, I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of Vince McMahon was able to take his oddball ideas and get rid of the shitty ones and then take the other ones and mold them into something usable. And then when he went down to WCW, there was no one there to edit him. He could do whatever he wanted. So then he starts putting himself he starts making himself the star of the show and putting himself in the middle of everything. But yeah,
Well,
that's a whole other podcast of how awful that dude was.
They would drop the title like 10, 15 times a year.
There was a Nitro where the title changed 6 times in one episode.
That's what I'm saying. That takes away everything.
And he was world champion at one point. David Arquette, who at that point was only known for freaking Scary Movie and 1-800 Collect commercials, was the heavyweight champion of the freaking world.
I know it. I knew. At that point, you ever heard the term "jump the shark"?
yeah. If you ever want to pinpoint of like, all right, well, this is where it all goes to hell. That's it. And I've met David Arquette. He's a super nice guy. Years later, he came back and trained and came back into wrestling and did some stuff. Nearly got killed by Nick Gage and all that. But
everybody's nearly got killed by Nick Gage. So that's he's almost as bad as what's his name, that New Jack.
New Jack, yeah, he's picked up where New Jack left off, I believe. Except he hasn't. Well, I can't say. I was going to say he hasn't nearly beat an old man to death. Like New Jack did
nobody.
Joe. But Nick Gage did a number on George South at WrestleCade a couple years ago. So, not as brutal though, man. Folks, if you want to see legalized assault on a senior citizen, you go find a video of New Jack and Gypsy Joe hearing that aluminum baseball bat ping off the side of Gypsy Joe's head.
Gypsy Joe was what, 65 or 70 at this point?
He was 70 at the time that match.
That's what I thought. I knew it was something crazy. But he almost killed that fat kid that had never really wrestled.
Mass Transit. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever his name was. It's like his third or fourth time in the ring, no.
Well, so there's a DVD that exists out there from RF Video where they took all these different incidents with New Jack, and then they sat down with New Jack, and he talks over them, and it explains what he was thinking at the time. And so there's the Gypsy Joe incident, there's the mass transit, the fat kid in the cop uniform, and then there's another one that people don't talk about as much from down in Florida where he stabbed a guy like 8 or 9 times in the match. Like,
I remember hearing about that.
And the guy and the New Jack's talking over it, and he's like, "So right now, I realize, this motherfucker don't know what he's doing." And you see him, he's like, "All right, you see me reaching in my pocket," and he's got on those camo pants, and he's reaching down in his pocket. He said, "You see what I'm pulling out?" He said, "That's a knife." And he just literally just stabbing this guy, like, up, down, around. He literally stabs that guy like 9 times. He went to jail for that one. They came and arrested him.
He went to jail for a couple of them.
Yeah, that one almost did him in. But yeah, he's just literally just like stabbing this guy in front of a crowd of people. Not a big crowd, mind you, but a crowd of people nonetheless. It's crazy. But hearing the ones where New Jack's talking over it, if you ever get a chance to find it, I don't remember what it's called, but it's an RF video with New Jack. Check it out. It's worth a watch for sure. That's
when insanity hits the ring and stays there.
And I got a chance to meet New Jack at one point too, and he was an interesting guy.
I can only imagine he was probably the same everywhere. I bet he was worse than Macho Man.
Oh yeah. If he'd had his old lady with him, he definitely would have had her locked up in a closet somewhere. I'm sure, much like poor Liz. Have you? Okay, speaking of Macho Man, to steer this back towards comedy, have you heard Shane Knowles' Macho Man impression?
I haven't, but I would imagine
Oh
it's
my
probably
goodness!
pretty good.
Yeah, there's clips on Main Event Comedy, the Facebook, but you keep doing these shows with him, you'll catch it soon. Yeah, he has a great Macho Man impression, but he has some really good material with Macho Man in a modern world, as he calls it. Kind of Macho Man's reaction to current things in society, and then there's also if Macho Man had been cast in famous movies, which is good,
Well,
good
he
shit.
was in Spider Man.
Yeah,
you know,
that's the premise of it. It's like, well, he was in Spider Man, but what if he had branched out from there and went into acting? And there's
what if Macho Man would have played Tom Hanks' part in Forrest Gump? Love is like a box of chocolates, brother, and
stupid is as
no
stupid
stupid
does.
does. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Mom always said, yeah.
Love is like a box of Slim Jim. Oh yeah.
You got to snap into them. That's what Mama said.
Lieutenant Dan, you
Man,
got two legs.
this has been fun, man. But I just want to remind everybody, if you want to see Big Shane in action, you want to see what Big Shane Batchelor's all about. August the 19th, come out to Happy Hour Comedy Club in Anniston. He's going to be competing against, at least, as of right now, at least a dozen other competitors.
What's the
And so
format? What's the format on it? Do we go
so it's
against the winners of the other three or something like that?
yeah, that's what's going to happen. So there's going to be one on August 19th. There's one on the third Saturday of September, October, and November. So each one of those are going to be just your typical competition format. Everybody goes up and does a set. We're going to have a set of three judges who aren't, I'm not choosing them. They have no ties to me or Main Event Comedy. They're completely outside. You know, they're going to be no ties to anybody. Nobody can say like, oh, that's his boy. No, it's not. They will choose the winner of each one, and then in December, those four winners come back for the finals in December. So the winner of each of those will get $100, and then they'll go to the finals. And the finals in December, those four people will square off. Three judges will decide the winner. That winner gets $200 cash and the Main Event Comedy Championship belt.
A little
So
scrap, brother.
you'll have the strap, brother. That's right. So make sure y'all check that out. For more information, you can go to themaineventcomedy.com, which you see right there under my name for all the info on that. If you're a comedian or aspiring comedian, go on there, fill out the form. You can August 19th full, but like I say, we still got September, October, and November that's got some spots open. You can come, you can compete, and give Big Shane a run for his money.
I can do ring announce. I did it for Tony. I can't remember his name. Black guy that does wrestling. I can't remember his damn name. But I did the ring announce for them for quite a few events. So I could
Okay.
be standing in this corner, weighing it, that kind of, that.
We may have you do some of that because I'm not going to be in any of the competitions because
What?
I mean,
What?
because God forbid, not to say that I could win any of them, but God forbid if I did, you'd never get anybody to believe that it was, that I didn't have a hand in the judge's decision. So I'm just not going to do that. But what I plan on doing, and we'll talk about this real quick,
All right.
because a lot of people have asked, and I've talked about this in a couple of interviews recently with folks. People have asked me like, "What's this Main Event Comedy thing? Is this like you're trying to make this like wrestling? Is there going to be angles?" And I'm like, "No, it's not going to be
Would be
angles.
great. Yeah, that's kind of cool in its own way.
We're not
Though.
gonna, yeah, we're not gonna have Big Shane hit somebody with a chair or whatever."
Hit
But
him in the head with a stop sign.
exactly, jump out of the balcony like New Jack. But kind of what my premise is, sort of like wrestling, but to me more so like I was a big fan of the early UFC before it got so huge.
Oh, when
Like I
you see
remember,
some
like
skinny guy against some huge fella.
I just remember
Before,
me and my brother watching the earlier UFCs and then promotion for the early UFCs. And like before the fight, they would have like a video of like Big Shane Batchelor comes out of Georgia. He's they tell their style and they tell their weight and their this and that. And so I thought, well, what if we kind of present this competition and promote it kind of like they used to do MMA, and that's why everybody fills out those forms. And the more information they give, the more I have to work with. I'm going to make these little promotional videos of everybody based on what they send me. And starting this week, I'm going to start putting out little videos promoting each person. And hopefully people will watch those videos before they come to the competition and kind of be invested, like, hey, that one guy, that one girl, they were funny. I hope they win, or they at least have a little bit of insight about everybody before they come. And so it's more of like how the promotional part of it. But what my role in this is kind of going to be, I plan to be kind of like, because we're going to take the clips and we're going to make like a little web series out of them, put like clips online and make, main event comedy championship for this one promotes the next one and the next one down the line. So I'm going to kind of be like the Joe Rogan, where I'm going to hit people up like after their set and be like, hey, it started out pretty good, but things kind of took a turn. What do you think about how it went tonight, or even beforehand? Like, hey, what's your plan going out there? What's your strategy tonight? Shit like that. Just a way that comedy hasn't been presented before. As far as I know, I've never really seen comedy, presented like that. At least not a competition. And so,
Mean Gene.
Let me tell you something, brother. And it may be Mean Gene Jackson. I don't know. I hadn't even thought about that. You may have stumbled upon something there. If I can find a tuxedo big enough to fit my fat ass, I may have to be like Mean Gene Okerlund. Hopefully, I won't be getting shit thrown at me like the end of Bash at the Beach when Hogan turned heel and Mean Gene was getting pegged in the head with freaking drinks and stuff. And
I want to talk about that for a second. That was the best heel turn of all time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I wasn't ready for that. Even I wasn't, I was like, Hogan, no. I was 16 when that happened. I was still.
It was so bizarre to hear Hulk Hogan say, "You fans can stick it, brother," and
but it only took
you
about
want to
a
hear
week.
Me talk, brother? You tell these fans to shut up, And
it only took about a week for me to start liking it, though. I like
he's like, Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. Like, oh wow, never thought I'd hear those words said on TV. But
him to be supposedly like one of the best wrestlers of all time, he had the lamest finisher of any wrestler I think I've ever seen. The leg drop sucked. I'm sorry, it sucked.
Well, I mean, what was he supposed? What else is he going to? I mean, you saw his move set.
It was before
moves. If you go down his list of moves, I mean, dropping his 300-pound ass on somebody was about the most devastating because the kick to the face wasn't it, and of course,
he went from 6'7" to 6'2" because of that.
Yeah, he's wishing he hadn't have been using that as a finisher all those years. For sure.
He's jammed up.
I'm surprised he's not like the side that he landed on. He's not like lopsided. He's like, well, on this side I'm 6'6", brother. On this side I'm 6'1". I walk sideways.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're gonna have fun with it, and the big key to all this, and I hope everybody understands, is how much the participants promote it and put it out there. Because even though, yes, there's going to be 3 outside judges, crowd reaction is going to have a lot to do with their perception. Yeah. So, the more people you have there, laughing at your jokes and cheering you on, the more apt you're going to be perceived well by the judges. So that's part of the deal too. We're trying to help Happy Hour. It's been rough getting it back on its feet after the pandemic. There's good nights and bad nights. Dustin Sims is selling it out every time he comes on Friday nights once a month. But, we've had some packed houses for main event comedy. Last night was, not packed by any stretch of the imagination. But that's what the whole theory behind this competition is to hopefully help get some new people on stage, giving them stage time, get some new audience members in there to let them see the club, hopefully come back, and hopefully have all the participants that are coming promote the event, promote the club, and then everybody wins. It helps everybody out in the end.
Are we going to do any kind of street team kind of stuff? Like we're, put out stuff, give stuff to people? Or is it just going to be?
No, we definitely need to. And I need to start coordinating that first of the month in
the pick, like how they do in, the flyers for wrestling that you see on the side of the Texaco or whatever. We need to do that for the comp.
I agree. I agree. I need to
That
I
would
need to
be.
get Flint on that and get somebody that can help me design a good one. And yeah, that's a great idea. So, but yeah, we definitely need to get a team together and get beat the streets, because last night, like I say, it wasn't a huge crowd, but I mean, it's all Facebook driven right now. I mean, that's really the only promotion that's going out there, is just everybody sharing shit on Facebook, and you can reach a certain percentage of the population with that. But
Facebook, you have to give them a shit ton of money for it to get anywhere. Because if
yeah,
you don't, you're just sharing it to the same 14 people.
yeah,
I don't,
exactly. And I know Flint pays for some of the Facebook promotional stuff and all that, but yeah, I think the best way to get some people out there, get some new people in there, and let people know that, like, hey, we're over here, we're doing this, is to get out and hand out some flyers, hang some flyers. Jacksonville State University is just right up the road. Like,
it's just right. Yeah, it's just right up the street, pretty much.
I want to go promote it over there on the college campus, get some flyers up over there, and yeah, try to get the word out and see if we can't pack that place out. And like I say, it's good for everybody, because everybody wants to perform in front of a good crowd. I mean, you said earlier in the interview that performing in front of 3 people or 300 is the same thing. In theory, it is, but come on, we all know that
I can tell you what, it's way harder to do it for 3 than it is 300.
Oh my God, that's what people like. So back in December, I went and did a show in Huntsville and did a guest spot for Cassio Kid at Stand Up Live, and he had, like, I don't know, it was like 200 or 300 people there. Like, the place was packed, and there were some pictures got shared of it. And I had a few people like, "Oh my God, how was it? Was that scary performing in front of like 300 people?" Like, no, it was awesome. Like, there's nothing scary about that to me. Like, the rough nights is going to happy hour, and literally more than once I have gone on stage in front of 2 people. Like, you're like a mutual friend of ours, Candy Ain't Right.
Oh yeah.
There were nights where me, Candy, Dave, like, we outnumbered the audience. We had like 5 comedians to 2 people in the crowd. And Flint's, if they've paid, we're doing it. Like, there ain't no like, hey, let's cancel the show and give them
yeah.
no, the show's going on. Dude, that is so rough. Not just rough for the comedian, but rough for the audience. Like, for those 2 people, you know how fucking awkward it is to have somebody on stage telling a joke and they're looking directly at you, and now everything hinges on your reaction. Like, you kind of have to laugh at everything, or you feel like a raging asshole. Like, I felt bad for them more than I felt bad for me. And so one night we had that happen where it was like 5 or 6 of us, and this one, like, these two guys, they were like in their early 20s. They said they were from Talladega. And it basically just turns into just a freaking, dialogue. Like,
banter.
Yeah, because the one guy was like, so we had this one, I can't remember the dude's name, but the flyer that Flint has up in the bathroom talks about how he does like clean comedy, and he does comedy in churches and all this. And within 2 minutes of him being on stage, he's like, "So you guys eat ass or what?" And they just have a conversation back and forth about eating ass. I'm like, what are we doing? Like at this point, he's not even like, he's just talking to these guys. Like, we're just talking on a Saturday night at this point. But the most awkward one I ever done, I was Whitey Jenkins, and I get there, and the only 2 comedians is me and Damian Clark, that guy, Mr. Inappropriate from Atlanta.
Yeah, I've known him ever.
Okay, so it's Whitey Jenkins and Mr. Inappropriate, and the only 2 people in the audience is a older black couple who are there celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. They're both in their 60s, and they're about to sit there and watch Whitey Jenkins and Mr. Inappropriate. I wish I had that recorded. That has to be the most awkward show that has ever taken place for all of us. For them, for me and Damien, for everybody. It was super uncomfortable, because he's going to be Mr. Inappropriate regardless of who the audience is. And of course, basically it was just White. It was the interaction of Whitey Jenkins having a conversation with an old black couple, which was, so 50 years, huh? I mean, none of my material that I had was going to hit with them, so I was just like, yeah. So
you tired of staring at that same dick or what?
How's the cheese sticks? Let me get one of them onion rings. But yeah. So I and so we started this main event comedy, and Wes and Steve and some of those guys, like, we had pretty big crowds the first 2 or 3 times out, and then last month he had Bag Lady Sue booked on our night, so he was just going to have us open for her, and then due to weather, she canceled like the day before, so he had to announce, well, the show's canceled, or Bag Lady Sue's canceled.
Yeah, I was on that one. I come down for that, yeah.
And so, there's, how many people was there, and so, they were kind of bummed out, and I told them, I was like, look, man, this is the reality of shit. Like, y'all got spoiled having those big crowds, but I'm like, this is, it's a mixed bag down here, dude. You never know what you're going to do. It may be packed. It may be 5 people. It may be 3 people. It may be 2 people. But you got to go up and make it happen, And that's wrestling's the same way.
Oh, it's exactly the same way.
You think doing comedy in front of 3 people is awkward? Go wrestle. Go take bumps in front of 5 people somewhere. And you can hear every word they're saying. Oh, that looked fake. And then it wasn't. I'm sitting here, dude just rattled my freaking teeth. I think I just got a concussion. And they go, oh, that looked fake. You want to be oh, really?
I want to come over one of these days or be a part of when you watch those videos of shitty wrestling. I really would like to be a part of that.
We do it through here. Yeah, I can
really enjoy doing that.
I've got a laundry list of people who are wanting to do that, and I'm going to try to cycle everybody in. But yeah, we do it through StreamYard, so we definitely can make that happen. That's got to keep finding bad wrestling, but it's not.
That shouldn't be that hard to do.
There's a lot out there. If I wanted to find good wrestling,
there's a lot of bad comedy too. It just happens to. Oh, yeah. But I enjoy that awkwardness, which it's weird to say that. I love to see somebody completely bite the bullet. You know what I mean? I'll laugh my ass off at it. I'm a dickhead. That's all it means. But, let somebody just take absolute shit on stage. I'll be in the corner laughing my ass off.
Yeah, it's fun if you're not the guy that's taking a shit.
If you're up there taking a kick to the balls, it ain't so great. But if you're watching it, oh God, I'm such an asshole. No, I'll be lying to him. No, man, that's funny. Nobody else in the room laughing. No, man, that's funny as shit. Oh!
Keep going. You got him.
Keep going. Finish strong or don't.
Well, all right, man. Tell everybody before we go, how can people find you on social media? How can they follow you and keep up?
It's just you can Google comedian Big Shane Batchelor. I got YouTube. I don't really get into it as much as I should. I got a Facebook. I got a fan page on Facebook. I got TikTok. TikTok's where I'm really trying to do more stuff on.
Yeah.
So it's comedian Big Shane on TikTok or Shane 626 or some crazy shit like that. But yeah, you just Google me. I'm around. Literally, I'm around.
Big Shane Batchelor, look him up. You'll enjoy his TikTok and his Facebook, and then you can see when he'll be coming to your area. But if you're anywhere within driving distance, and hey, if you own a car, technically it's always within driving distance, come to Happy Hour Comedy Club August the 19th and watch Big Shane embarrass the competition.
Embarrass him.
And put him down, brother. Best of luck to you, man. Thanks for doing this. I've been looking forward to it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, brother. Have a good one, man.
You too, bud.
Bye, buddy.